Hello and welcome to our second ever show of Nerds at Night. I'm Tolly,
And I'm non-lethal.
and today we're going to talk a little bit more about ourselves. We started off our first episode with an E3 wrap up and sort of skimmed a little bit over who we are and who our gaming and what our gaming credentials are. So we're just going to start off. As you know by now, I'm Tolly, and I've been gaming for about 15 years. I started out with classic Nintendo, playing the original Super Mario Brothers games, and I'm pretty sure my mum may have gotten me into it because I remember her playing like Super Mario Brothers 3, and have moved on from there. I know Non-Lethal is a little bit older than me, so he may have gotten started earlier on.
Yes, you make me feel very, very old, Tolly.
Because you are old.
I'm not that old. Come on, give me a break. No, but yeah, go on.
No, that's fine. What consoles did you start out with? Being some 10 decades older than me.
Well, yeah, I am Methuselah, is what they call me in the lower circles of hell. But no, I started off really, really early in gaming. Been gaming for about 20 odd years on the Atari, the original Commodore 64, playing Alex Kidd in Miracle World on the Master System 2, and then all your classic consoles and your NES and your Gear and all that kind of stuff.
That's fair. Tell me, did you ever have an Xbox?
I have never owned an Xbox. I don't have anything against them. I've just never felt the need to purchase one.
Yeah, well, that was going to lead me into my next question, which was going to be, do you have a fanboyism?
Nah, I wouldn't say I got a fanboyism. I do have the, PC gaming master raceism, but I don't feel a strong connection to any one console family over another.
Yeah, so I have to say I'm a part of that culture as well. Gaming, PC gaming is clearly where all the masters are. Those people playing on their consoles, whinging about their frame rates and their resolution and all that. When I'm playing 1080p at 60 frames a second on my quad SLI bloody machine is where it's at.
Yeah, it's hard to find something to complain about on the PC.
Well, there is the ridiculous Steam sales and all that, but now we're just gushing over the master race, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We are. Let's move on, Tolly.
I did progress on from the Nintendo. I had mostly Sony consoles growing up, so I have got a little touch of fanboyism with them. I do love Sony. I like their controls only because I'm used to it now. I did get an Xbox 360 for Christmas some 3 or 4 years ago or whenever it was, and I got it purely for Fable because it's the exclusive that always get me.
That's fair, yeah. I've started off in the original PlayStation, just dabbling in games here and there, nothing really spectacular, but moved on to the PS2 and then eventually got myself a PS3. As I said, never had an Xbox, but I do sort of just enjoy I've got a wide variety of games on my PS3. Didn't really get it specifically for any exclusives. I've got your Infamous, I've got your Madden, I've got a few Gran Turismos, just a variety.
Why haven't you played Little Big Planet? It's clearly the only game you need on that platform.
And it's clearly the only game I have never actually played.
Oh, that's terrible. No, I PS2 was about the only one I didn't get. I had the original PlayStation, which was kind of technically my brother's, but I was the younger of the two siblings, so it basically became mine because I whinged more than he did that I should get to play it. And moved up to the PS3 from there, and I got that specifically for Little Big Planet at the time, and I kind of wanted to play God of War 3. So it's really sort of the exclusives that drove me up the Sony path, and now I've got the PS4 playing all the quote unquote next gen titles like Infamous Second Son and Watch Dogs. I even got the latest Assassin's Creed in next gen.
Yeah, it would be pretty good to words. I'm looking forward to getting the next gen console myself and getting some of those games. It's something I need to look into in the future, but I'm pouring all my money into the more important things like bettering my PC and just getting more games.
Yeah, that's reasonable. We should probably just touch on Nintendo a little bit more in consoles before we move on. I'm really, really tempted to get a Wii U. I was fortunate in the last generation. I had all the consoles. Felt like a king basically because I can play all of the games. So that was pretty good. But Wii U, I mean, I won't go back into E3 too much, but a lot of games coming out on that, it just gets me so tempted. And once you've had all three consoles and you've started one game from each exclusive lineup, it really locks you into buying the next console so you can keep up with the bloody series.
Yeah, can't argue with you there. Like, I've never owned myself a Nintendo console. I've had plenty of friends who've got Wii's and Wii U's and GameCube and all those things. And but I've always had I started off with the original Game Boy and moved on. Eventually, now got the DS XL to play my Pokemon and stuff on there, and that's pretty much all I use it for. But yeah, the Wii U, yeah, I'm not sold on it, but it does have some very amazing games coming out on it, as you
It is
mentioned.
interesting that you bring up portables. I had the original Game Boy and I had all of the Pokemon games, and this was back when I was like 12 years old, so on car trips everywhere we went, that sucker was glued to my hand. This was back in the days when it was the original 151 Pokemons, not the stupid 7,000 that they have now. Goddamn Game Freak. But
There is quite a lot of Pokemon going on at the moment there, yeah.
there is too many Pokemon. There's one that's a goddamn nose. Why do they do
and,
this?
and a set of keys, a set of
A
keys.
keyring for a Pokemon.
Hey, let's not get sidetracked,
All
Charlie.
right,
Let's go.
you're right. We'll move on. I think we'll move up to genres. Tell me, Non-Lethal, what genres are you into? Don't say RPGs because I'll jump down your throat if you do. Pick a good genre like FPS.
Look, I'm not one to start an argument, but RPGs
Oh,
I've
you
played a
goddamn son of
lot.
a bitch!
Look, I started off from a lot of the games like your Baldur's Gate and like all of the Elder Scrolls series going back to like I think I started on Daggerfall was the first one I played, but I've really just like I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, because I was a nerd with long hair and stuff. But I really loved getting into the RPG features and just like customizing everything the way I wanted it to go and doing what I wanted. So yeah, RPGs really fit it for me. And you got something against RPGs, Tolly?
Ah, non-lethal. You've made the worst possible choice. I'll try and avoid going into a diatribe over this, which is exactly what I'm about to do. The problem I have with RPGs is that more often than not, it comes down to there is just a best build, and if you don't have that build, you're terrible. You can either have fun or be good.
Well, that can be said about a lot of games. It's like there's a best way of doing everything in every game, arguably. It's not exclusive to RPGs, but I do see where you're coming from. And I can see how that would be true in a competitive circuit, like in your online RPGs, like your World of Warcraft and stuff. But if you're really playing it like just on your computer, like the original Deus Ex, for example, is completely offline, like you can play it a number of ways and be successful and still have fun. There's no one best way to do it.
Well, that's true, and you bring up World of Warcraft, and I am a recovering
Oh,
World of Warcraft addict.
what
God,
have I done?
I know. It was fortunate for me. I was doing it my last years of high school, so the only thing that suffered were grades, and they don't count for anything because I'm totally successful now. So that
Yeah,
that that was
totally.
fine. I was in that for like 4 years. All my friends nagged me into playing it, and then I started playing it. I'm like, oh my god, this is the bomb. And I joined one of the top level guilds on my server, and we were ranked somewhere in the world, somewhere above 100, less than one. And I found that back then that you either have the best build. I played a night elf rogue. This is for the history books when people want to mock me later. And I found that there were a couple of rotations and a couple of builds and one set of gear that was good, and everything else meant you were a noob.
Yeah, I can see what that mindset still comes around today. And in back in the day, before they had all these big IMBA websites and like optimizations of gears, it was really just knowing the fights and getting the right gear for each fight and all the different rotations that were out there. And look, I'm the same thing. I played a rogue, but I played the superior race clearly because dwarves are better than night elves.
God, who plays a dwarf? What the hell, man?
This guy. But yeah, I was also in a really like top tier raiding guild. We were the first on a US server to take down half of Blackwing Lair, so that was really, really fun times back in Vanilla WoW. But yeah.
Yes, Vanilla Master Race.
Look, the expansions have had their high points and their talking points, but I can see what they're trying to do with the game, trying to keep up with the times. But let's face it, WoW is almost as old as you are now.
That's pretty close to true. It's going on what, nearly 10 years now, I think, something like that. It's still got a
Yeah.
massive subscriber base.
Massive but declining, but yes, it is still a ridiculously high subscriber base, and that's why everyone compares new MMOs that are coming out to WoW. They're called WoW clones, or it's not as good as WoW because, they set the benchmark for MMORPGs.
Their subscriber base is only falling though because the Chinese gold farmers are getting more efficient, so they need fewer accounts.
Well, maybe that's fair, and also racist.
Harsh but fair.
Harsh
Um,
but fair.
well, it's interesting that you bring up competitive gaming, and my genre of choice, I say this now as an old man looking back on my wasted youth, is first person shooters. I played Call of Duty 4 competitively for a long time, and we ended up going to the World Cyber Games. If you don't know, Non Lethal and I are based in Victoria, Australia. So the World Cyber Games was Australia's version of Gaming Olympics, which went on to the worldwide World Cyber Games, which was what happened before we had MOBAs and everyone just started playing LOL instead. And going on to that was really interesting because in a first person shooter, it comes down a lot to skill. It didn't matter what your build was, you all got just a gun. It was the point and click interface. So I really like where you need to have that skill and the practice, and you need to know the maps and the layouts and actually need to use teamwork to accomplish a goal. Having said that, we lost. We got crushed. We were second in 3 teams.
Well, you can't win them all, I suppose.
We were up against a team called Team Immunity, and it was literally five 14-year-old kids, and they were in us with the preliminaries, and they come up to us, they absolutely schooled us. It was 5v5, 24 round search and destroy, and we won one round because one of our players was drunk, used a shotgun, and just teamed down them. And afterwards, these kids, this is a problem in gaming now, is the culture around it, which we won't go into too much. But these kids came up to us afterwards and laughed in our faces. We're a group of like 20-year-old blokes getting laughed at by 14-year-olds because we've been schooled. And the only retort that we had for these kids that had all the time to spend on these games was, at least we've been laid.
Well, yeah, that's fair, and you can't always say that with these kids. Kids these days are getting starting off younger, as they say. But yeah, it's a culture of gaming which I'm hoping we'll touch on a bit more later on. But it's something which I don't enjoy. But I'm glad you talk about first-person shooters, Tolly, because I never really got into first-person shooters a lot. Like, I've gotten a bit more into them lately because I never felt that I was great at them, but I never really gave them a go. I preferred to have I suppose your top down or your third person just going by yourself, or it wasn't so much an aim. It's hard to explain, but I've gotten a bit more into sort of your first person shooter type of game coming up, and that's the sort of game I've been getting into a lot lately, is your cooperative sort of games. Like you said, it's something that WoW gave us, is the teamwork and the cooperation to take down a certain goal, and the first person shooters gave it to us as well, but from a different perspective. And so that's the sort of games that I've really been getting into lately.
Yeah, so I know this firsthand. You and I have spent an exorbitant number of hours playing Diablo, hours wasted, um, trying to get up to Torment 6. So I can feel that in the sense that cooperative gaming is a big thing now. It helps when you have friends, which is why I only ever play with you.
Because I am your one and only friend.
I admit to nothing. Moving on. But I think that's the thing we're missing in gaming now, and it's still out there a little bit with Battlefield 4, is cooperative gaming on a large scale. I mean, how do you get 25 jerks to all cooperatively try and achieve the same goal without being jerks? And that was the thing I miss in Vanilla WoW, and even some of the smaller squad-based games. It's really hard to convince players that, hey, maybe you should work together and you'll be able to overcome this, instead of ramboing into a challenge and trying to defeat it on your own.
Yeah, it's what I sort of disliked as World of Warcraft went on, and why I stopped playing it after a while was because after they introduced like your raid finder and like even just the looking for group channel, it was just people could just come in randomly and throw their faces against an encounter until they beat it, instead of actually like learning how to play the game.
That's modern gaming, though. It's just ramming your face against a challenge until it eventually gets nerfed and you can move past it.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say, just moving slightly along a little into the future of gaming, Microsoft have probably come up with the best way to either ruin friendships or force cooperation with Kinect. I know you've never owned an Xbox, but I had a Kinect with my 360, and the only game I've really played a lot with it was Fruit Ninja. And trying to play that cooperatively with an associate of mine was probably the closest thing that has ever led us to fisticuffs in my life.
Oh man, I spent many hours playing Mario Party, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
But it's interesting with the Kinect though, because it's at least that gets people back in the same room, and I think that's where gaming needs to go. I mean, there's nothing more fun than sitting on a couch with your friends, I imagine, and playing a cooperative or even a competitive game together when you're all sitting there in the same room. I know internet gaming is a huge thing now, and we're all really excited that we can sit in our underwear while we play WoW. But I think couch gaming needs to become a bit more of a thing going forward.
Yeah, I do really miss the days where I used to just go out with my friends and drink a lot of beers and play Mario Party or Guitar Hero or all those sorts of things. And maybe one day those days will come back, and if they ever do, I'll invite you to see some of my friends.
You don't have any friends. You're worse than me.
That's a lie, and you know it.
Just moving back to the future of gaming, though, I'm not sure that those couch days are going to come back, and I fear this because of the dreaded Oculus Rift. And I think once we can just put on a helmet and pretend like we're sitting next to our friends. So I imagine one of the first virtualizations will be a game within a game. So the game will be you sitting on a couch with people who pretend they like you, and you'll all be playing a game on a screen within your Oculus Rift.
Yeah, it'll either be that or porn.
Well, I mean that's the first use for everything, and now that Facebook's bought it, it'll be porn that you can share with your friends and tag in your status.
Terrifying.
I shouldn't rag on Facebook. I don't think them acquiring Oculus Rift is really going to be a huge deal. I think they just want to inject money into something that could be the future of gaming.
That's a fair assessment. Yeah, I don't think they're going to have a massive creative input over it. I think, as you said, they just want to get their fingers in the pie.
Yeah, well, that's right. If it was me and I had Facebook's resources, I'd be buying up anything that looked nifty so I could play with it first as well.
Well, yeah, how are you ever going to take over the world if you let other companies come up to challenge you?
That's right. I'm looking at you, YouTube. Um, but the other problem that virtual reality and Kinect and all these other things present is just the control mechanisms have gotten so lousy in games at the moment. I don't understand how companies believe they can improve on the mechanism where I sit on my couch with six buttons on a controller in my hand and I don't have to move my thumb any more than an inch to press a button.
Yeah, it takes me back to this sort of original NES system where there was, the D-pad, start button, and two buttons basically, and now these days you've got like touch pads and like four different triggers and two sticks and a D-pad and six buttons. It's getting ridiculous, and as you said, and now you have to have like mats on the ground, and like I don't mind it so much with your Guitar Heroes and stuff where you have those peripherals because it's like made for that purpose. But yeah, I don't know what exactly they're hoping to achieve by the non-physically sort of moving games, like your non-Connect games and your non-Guitar Hero sorts of games.
Yeah, well, I think that gets back to the core of it is essentially there is few input mechanisms easier than pressing a button, which is why I think Guitar Hero works. It's because you're still just pushing a button. The peripheral just makes you feel like you're some sort of hardcore rock god because you're pushing the buttons that are placed on something shaped kind of like a kid's ukulele.
Or in the cases of the few gifted ones among us, it actually makes you a rock god.
Well, that's true. At this World Cyber Games, I saw two guys try and get through Fire and Flames together, and that was pretty impressive to watch because these guys actually look like they were rock gods.
And it makes the whole group think they're famous and awesome at karaoke, especially when there's a few brews sunk. Not that you know anything about that, you abhorrent individual.
Yes, that's true. For all the listeners out there, I don't drink because I'm a soft son of a bitch like that, and screw you guys. Moving
Sorry,
on.
you drink so much I had to open another beer.
Ah, you're the worst person I know.
I'm the only person you know.
I admit to nothing. Getting back to it though, what games do you think defined you growing up? I know that's probably you've got to think back a ways to get back to that, but try and remember what games stick out in your mind. What were your all time favourites?
First of all, you sir are hilarious, and second of all, yeah, there's a few games which really stick out to me, sort of growing up. I suppose there's anything within the Pokemon series, but specifically the earlier games, just because they were the simpler games. I didn't have any of your dance studios and your fashion shows and any of that kind of crap, and it was just the original, as you said, the original 151, and it was just you, your team, and the open road. So those games really
That's right. You
were.
were a 10-year-old who couldn't ride a bike in certain places because an old man on a cell phone forbid it.
That's true, and nothing has changed. But then moving forward was sort of your original XCOM Enemy Unknown for the people who are ancient like me and remember that game.
Didn't they
It
make
was
that recently?
no, that was a remake. This was a really, really old game, and it was possibly one of the hardest games ever made.
Oh, I think
Like,
Battletoads begs to differ.
oh wow, you can say that, but you clearly never played the original XCOM Enemy Unknown.
That's true.
It was very, very unforgiving. The new one, XCOM Enemy Within, is the expansion, but the new XCOM Enemy Unknown, it's a lot, a lot easier than the original one. So that was a really defining game for me. I poured a lot of hours into that, just trying to smash these aliens, and yeah, it was very satisfying being able to do it. But then it sort of moved on, and I took a little bit of time off gaming as I moved around and tried to be an adult and work and stuff. But then, as they do, the games always call you back. And one game which really sort of sadly defined me for many, many years, on and off, was World of Warcraft. I poured time and time and time into that game.
Give me a rough hour estimate. How much of your adult life did you lose to that vacuum of soul sucking hedonism?
Well, years and years. I played since the beta, and I only stopped during the last expansion. Like, I'd taken breaks before that that lasted somewhere between 2 and 12 months at a time, but yeah, it always kept on drawing back, and I can't really put a figure on it because I never did slash played because I don't like stroking my e-bean, but the only thing that really took away from me was possibly my first marriage.
Dear Lord, man.
It's a lie, but hey, it probably contributed. I tried to get my wife to play it for a bit, and she did, but yeah, it was something for me.
That's bringing back like these horrible flashbacks. I may have lost an early relationship to WoW as well. Oh God, the
But
memories.
the memories! But what about yourself, Tolly? Where would you say some, like, a couple of your iconic games that you had growing up?
The one that first comes to mind, and I have no idea why, is the old Fahrenheit 9/11 or whatever it was called. It's called.
Oh, man.
I'm thinking of this stupid documentary. What I mean is Fahrenheit. What I got it as was Indigo Prophecy, and that game, for some reason, just stuck with me. I remember playing through it, and I remember so much of it so vividly. And then this song that played during the ending credits, because I didn't realize I lost at the end. It was one of those early multiple ending games, and I sort of fumbled my way through one of the boss fights and kind of sucked at it, so I lost. But I didn't know, so it just gave me an ending, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the canonical ending. I'm okay with that. And it played Santa Monica by Theory of a Deadman, and that is still my favourite song of all time purely because of that game. And I don't understand why. It was just a really interesting control mechanism, and the story just stuck with me because he was just an ordinary guy who, came to one day and he brutally stabbed someone to death in a bathroom. And I mean, that happens to people. I've had bad days.
Yeah, it's happened to me before. Wait, no, that's never, never.
Sorry, I was just letting people dial the police.
They don't know where I live or my real name.
I give out your address. You live in like P. Sherman, 32 Wallaby Way, West Sydney.
Yeah, we'll be linking to my Facebook account and to Tolly's social media.
Nah,
Perhaps.
haha, I have no social media because I'm a private bastard. Find me if you can, internet.
Damn it! Now the gauntlet has been thrown. Now you're going to be found and hacked.
That's probably true. God, why do I do these things? But
So
getting back to games though, there are others that stick out. Like I played Battletoads as a kid, and by played I mean I bent over and let that thing spank me on the second level every time I played it. And it's just I played all the GTA's growing up, and I as went into Modern Warfare. As I said, I played all the Call of Duties. But I think Indigo Prophecy is really the one that just sticks out for me. And I've played all the Triple A's nowadays, and nothing has stuck with me like a lot of those older games have. They've just really sort of shaped my view of gaming. And a lot of Triple A games I'll play nowadays, I'll play through the story and I'll be like, oh yeah, that was alright. Wish I'd have pirated it because that's $20 I'll never get back. And you didn't get that back in the day, I'll say, being only 15 years old. You'd spend, or you'd nag your parents to spend $80 in a game, and you would play the life out of that sucker. And the only game in recent time to do that was WoW. Like I lost probably 3 years to WoW, I think, that bastardizing game. And you just, I don't know. It may be different with you RPG peasants, but a lot of games just don't seem to really have a reason to replay them again.
that's fair. And just as a side note, before I touch on that, well, the RPG peasants out there like me, please don't take anything Tolly says offensively. He's just a jerk.
I admit to nothing.
But yeah, I do get exactly what you mean. I find that games these days are lacking, with very few exceptions, lacking true replayability, and the difficulty in a lot of games is lacking more, so they appeal to a wider audience. So, like, games back in my day were very, very difficult, and there's like only a very few games like your Dark Souls and stuff which really like just bend people over. Otherwise, it's just have some money, play the game for like maybe a month to get like what you want out of it, and then move on to another game, with the exception of your online persistent ones, your MMORPGs and whatnot.
It's funny that you brought that back up. Was WoW the only MMORPG you've ever played?
No, I've dabbled in a lot
Oh,
of
you slut.
because yeah, like WoW was my one true mistress, but like I've played the Old Republic, I played in the WildStar beta. There's a few like sort of indie ones that I played a bit, which I'm not very proud of. But I played like Warhammer Online and just all sorts of MMORPGs because I was looking for something to take WoW away from me, basically. And every single time I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, it's not WoW, and went back to WoW.
That's fair. I tried to play Guild Wars, as in, I went into the store, I looked at the box, and went, meh, I'll buy something else. And the only other MMO I remember playing, and this is like going back a decade, was some Chinese free to play game called Silk Road. And if anyone out there remembers it, please message me on my non existent social media, message me via non lethal, and let me know if it still exists, because I remember playing it for like maybe 20 hours and then just going, I don't understand this, everything's in Mandarin, I don't know what I'm doing, but somehow I'm like level 50. And the only one besides that was back in the old days. I'm sure a lot of people out there will remember, the name's escape me now, Runecraft?
Uh, RuneScape.
RuneScape, that's it. God, forgive my ignorance, everyone.
RuneScape's all well and good. I played Ultima Online, the original MMORPG. Yeah.
God damn it, you're old.
Yeah, I get there. You're getting there too. Shut up.
Yes, one day I'll achieve puberty, and then I'll have a deep, manly voice like you do.
Yes, you will. Alright, so those are the games you've sort of grown up on. What games are you really like jonesing for at the moment, and what games are you absolutely not able to wait for?
Very few, actually. I've gone a little bit off games because I'm attempting this whole be a successful businessman thing. But the only thing I find myself waiting for now is I've started a few episodic games. I played the first half of Broken Sword 5, the Broken Sword series being the absolute pinnacle of adventure games. Screw you, everyone who likes Grim Fandango. The Wolf Among Us, Broken Age, games like that. I was really into a lot of the point-and-click adventure games as a kid, and all the Kickstarter ones of those have now come out as bloody episodes. So I'll play the first 2 episodes, forget the game exists, and then never get around to finishing them if they release the ending content. So I'm sort of waiting for the rest of The Wolf Among Us, and I think the second episode's already out of Broken Sword, so I should probably go and play that now. No, wait, finish podcast.
Yes, finish podcast.
So that's about it. I mean, a lot of other games, like I want them to come out. I want Destiny to come out. I want, a new Assassin's Creed just so I can play a new high-def Assassin's Creed. But that's about it. I'm not finding myself jumping up and down for many games out there. I'll probably think of something later, at which point I'll post it on Twitter and be like, OMG, I totally forgot game XYZ.
Yeah, that'll probably be what's happened. Or people will call us out in the comments, or they'll tweet us and let us know what games you're totally forgetting about, which are amazing.
That'll be true. People will be like, what about the next Minecraft patch? And I'll be like, Minecraft was the bomb. That sucked too much of my life as well.
Yes, yeah, me too.
What about you? You excited for anything coming up?
Well, like I said, I've really moved into the sort of cooperative sort of games. So the game I'm playing, still dabble in Titanfall and like Left 4 Dead 2 and stuff. And Sid Meier's Civilization will always drag me back in. But you and I have been pouring a lot of hours into Diablo 3. But things I'm really looking forward to, like you've already mentioned, Destiny. I'm really, really hoping Destiny will be my new MMO that is not an MMO. It seems like I can play it single player esque if I want to, and just team up with a few friends if I want to, and it's got the RPG elements and should be sweet. Same sort of thing with Division. It's got RPG elements, team-based, survival, really just a different sort of pace to Destiny. And Assassin's Creed Unity, as you've already mentioned as well, like it'll be really fun. So that's what I'm hoping will be a really good couch game. Sit down with a bunch of mates and just each take an assassin and just murder the living hell out of people.
I think all that's pretty fair. I think you're just more of an excitable individual than me. I'm basically just bitter and jaded on the inside.
That's true. You do, instead of having a heart, you have a tarry ball of black goo.
Maybe that's why I'm always coughing.
Yeah, could be.
But anyway, having now taken a walk down memory lane and come back into the present and the future to come, I think that's where we'll wrap up today's show. I hope that you've all enjoyed basically a history of us, who we are and what our thoughts are on gaming. We will have a few tech podcasts coming up, going a little bit more into the tech side of things, but we'll sort of mediate it out. We'll have some gaming stuff, we'll have some tech stuff, we'll probably have a few rants on just random things. So make sure to stick around for future episodes and subscribe on iTunes.
Yeah, and follow us on the Twitters, and we'll have our Facebook page going, so you can follow us there as well. And it's going to be a really exciting time. Future episodes, we'll also consider in the future, if you guys want us to, doing some streaming, some very, very expletive-laden streaming, and more talks about issues within gaming and the gaming industry, and anything that we just feel passionate to talk about, or if you guys want us to talk about.
That's right. I'll be very keen to do a 30-minute monologue on why class systems in RPGs are bollocks and why all people who like RPGs have been indoctrinated into essentially garbage.
And I'm really looking forward to doing a 30-minute monologue on why the culture of gaming has become more or less terrible, for just lack of a better word, just terrible.
See, that's something I think we can all agree on. Just a heads up for everyone who'll be tuning in for our next week's show, Non-Lethal is taking a break because he can't stand to be around me for any more than 2 weeks at a time. So we'll have our very first guest nerd on the show, who will be Scuzzy, who we'll talk a little bit more about when he's on the show.
Yeah, I'll be gone for a couple of weeks. I've got some fun things to do instead of hanging around and talking to Tolly. Really, the stress of this podcast is getting to me already after episode 2.
That's because you're old, mate.
Yes, well, things stress me out easily.
Alright, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe and join us next week.